On my last video, I showed you how we kept our plants warm when a sudden cold spell happens. And as you can see now, we have taken the covers off. And the plants are actually on their way to recovery. Yes, it was affected by the cold spill, and it doesn't seem like it. Although we covered it, you can see that from the base, there's no leaves at all because I have taken them out, cut them all out, and it is now recovering. And so another thing I'm doing to help this recover is by debudding them so that the plant could concentrate on developing more leaves and gather more strength to really fully recover and develop more stronger, healthier vine that will support their fruits. Earlier I was saying that I did a good job waiting for the warm weather this year, but what happened was I noticed that my seedlings are turning yellow, as you see right there, and looking really in need for nutrients. So being planted in those small containers will not provide them all the nutrients they need at the rate of growth they're trying to put out. And so I decided that I'll go ahead and plant them. And one would think that this is how they always been since I transplanted them, but they were actually exposed to a sudden change of temperature, then a sudden heat, then the last cold spill, and it went through a lot of stress. They managed to bounce right back, and now from the look of them, one wouldn't think that they have gone through any kind of stress at all. They're looking fresh and green and really looking so healthy. Take a look at the size of the leaves of that. As you can see, they are really recovering. And from transplants that had not been hardened before we planted them here, these are actually doing very well. And another thing that I did besides covering them with that sudden cold spill, covering them to keep them warm, is that I come around every day, and as you can see, that right there is a bud. And at this stage, as you can see, well, here's a sign of the stress they went through. As you can see right there. Right there is another plant that really went into shock, and it seems almost like it might not recover, but if you look, there are new growth, and I'm not really worried about it. Even though it's putting out new growth, I'm not too concerned because I can always plant some more bitter melon. It's early yet, and at the same time, look over there, that's another bitter melon, which as you can see is very, very healthy right next to it. So if you look at my transplants on my raised beds, you would never think that they went through any kind of stress at all, but they did, and they are now fully recovering. Here are some signs of the leaves which I snip off because the last cold spill really affected them, as you can see now. And look where I trimmed them off. And you would never think that they went through any kind of stress at all, and they did. Here's my basil, actually is still showing that the bottom leaves, and I just want to smell it. It smells so good, and it's not doing too bad at all. See, and I leave that there because the worm needs something to eat. And hey, that looks like it wants to flower, this basil, so I'm gonna pinch that off. And here's another one. This is Rosita, Berenjena Rosita. I'm doing right now actually is hunting for any buds. And how can I miss this one? Take a good look at this. See that bloom there? Okay, this is cucumber, and this is about, I would say, a good 4.5 long vine, and yet you could see that, you see this is a male flower of the cucumber, this cucumber here. And I am not going to allow this to have, it's got quite a few buds here, and I'm going to take them all as much as I can recognize. I'm going ahead to pluck them off because I want it to have at least 1 more week of growth, and then I let them be. Okay, so take a look at that. This would have been requiring a lot of energy, a lot of nutrient for the plants to support this, and it will just stunt the growth even more, and that is something I don't want to happen. So pardon me if I am trying to think and debud this plant at the same time, but that's quite a good amount of buds. I thought I went through this yesterday. As a matter of fact, I was here yesterday doing just that, looking for buds, and I must have missed that one, but I got that now. And look at this cucumber here. It's a nice, healthy looking cucumber, and I'm checking it out for any buds, and there's none, which is good compared to the one I just debudded, which have lots of buds and a bloom, yet it's not doing very well. And here are my papaya, which my husband transplanted yesterday. I have 3 papayas here, and we have planted most of our cassava except for these 3. So I gambled planting them too early, and the result is as you can see. But sometimes you just have to gamble, and at this time I am not too worried about the result. I believe my plants are not doing too bad, although they were affected by the last cold spill. As you can see, they are really recovering from the stress. I'm actually happy now that I planted early because I'm pretty much, I would say, a good 85% done with my planting in my garden, and they really are doing much better now. They're fully recovered, and I'm just now making sure in maintaining it. Here goes another here. Here's another bud. As you can see, what I'm doing now is just getting rid of the buds from those plants that are just in a hurry to put out blooms and start bearing fruit. You can't allow them to bear fruit when they're, look at this, not even a foot, it's not even a foot tall yet. Okay, so that's what I am doing now. Just maintaining all of my transplant, all of the seedlings, and as you can see, they're doing very well. So we are officially gardening for the year 2019. Our garden is planted. Each raised bed is occupied, and you might have noticed that I have several types of plants in one bed. Well, I guess what I'm trying to do, if my theory is correct, where insects or any type of bugs can easily find their targeted plant. They normally have a favorite plant where they would linger and feed on. So I believe that if I were to give several type of plants or plant several types in one area, it kind of confuse the bugs, and hopefully I could minimize the damage that way. So over here I have, right there you can see that cucumber on this corner and another cucumber on that corner next to those papaya seedlings, and some I believe those are spaghetti squash. Where are you? Right there, that's a spaghetti squash right there. Some tomatoes on this side, another spaghetti squash right there, and over there. And if you're wondering what those little tiny little seedlings in between the pepper and the tomato, those are my mustard seeds. A lot of them actually are volunteer, because I used to have mustard green planted here, and then they went into seed, and I'm not worried about them because they are preventing my plants from being attacked by nematodes, and I will be pulling them out or thinning them. I probably leave about 3 or 4 of those mustard seeds there just for precaution to fight against nematode. So there they are. My transplant are doing very well, and we are now actually officially gardening for the year 2019, the year 2019, and here are my blueberries. If you look over there, let me bring them up close. You can see the blueberries are covered with fruits. So as you can see, although I failed to harden my transplant this year, you can see that from my panic, I just discovered that if I'm willing to take the risk of them going into shock, going into stress, that it's not altogether too bad transplanting your seedling before they are hardened, because as you can see, none of these transplant that you see here, I have in these beds. I planted peppers on this side, and on that side I planted tomatoes, and none of these seedlings or transplant were hardened first before I planted them or transplanted them. That was because, as I mentioned already, I got panicky when I saw that there seems to be turning yellow and requiring more nutrient in the soil that they're planted in. They're planted in tiny little cells, as you remember, and so I went ahead and planted them and decided that I will learn from this mistake if things didn't turn out. But at the same time, I learned I learned something good about it, that if you're willing to take the risk, I did not even harden my seedlings, planted it way before the last cold spill and went through stress and all of that. And if you look at them now, you would never think that they went through any kind of stress at all.